cash compensated. David Bass, Nick. Okay, I call this regular workshop to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Truitt, Vice Mayor Villanueva.
Here.
Councilman Longabaugh.
Here.
Councilman Alton.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 1, Mr. Lynch, if you please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to appear before you tonight and present to you our new website. I'd like to take just a minute to give you a quick overview of the communications functions, and then we'll get right into the website review. If I could draw your attention to your screens. A quick communications overview. We are, of course, as you know, engaging, informing, and involving Surprise residents and beyond, of course, beyond our borders. The picture there is of the Surprise Library art mural, which is a good metaphor for community involvement and our engagement with the community. We documented every portion of that development, did a lot of the publicity for it, and of course arranged and publicized the unveiling event that many of you were present for. A little bit about our communications platforms and image management and the services that we provide. Of course, we operate Surprise 11, surpriseaz.com, which we'll show you in just a minute. Inside Surprise, which is the city intranet site, which is how we communicate with our over 800 employees. A very critical piece of the puzzle that's not often discussed and often overlooked is how important that intranet site is. We also publish the Progress magazine and all other city publications. We handle media relations, both here in Surprise and around the valley, around the state, and even on a national stage. We're involved in strategic issues such as communication, or such as transportation, and the upcoming bond discussions that council and the community will be involved in. And we handle the needs for public information and relations for the various city departments. How we operate, the picture you see there highlights the word honesty. Nothing is effective or coherent in good public relations or public information policy unless it is honest. We support the council's direction on really encouraging and showing open government and transparency. Our charge is to innovate and create, to engage and to inform, and to promote and market our organization. We'll get to the net in just a second. Here's a few wins that we've had with our net since January of this year. Of course, we've launched the Council Conversations show that everyone on the Council has had an opportunity to participate in. The Council websites are up and very active thanks to your involvement with them. That includes the Council Notebooks, which is a great way to engage residents and citizens and keep them informed about your activities, and we all appreciate your involvement in that aspect of your website. The Granicus program is now up and operational. It integrates the web with the video. Thanks to the mayor and many others for being involved in really promoting Granicus internally. It's made a big difference. We're doing live broadcasting now. We just originated 10 broadcasts from the CTCA tennis event. And another net win for us was the Preservation Forum in September. Not the happiest of occasions, but a good example of how we can get involved and get engaged with the community and present very valuable information. We launched our new website. We'll get to that in just a second. We do video and PowerPoint embeds now on the internet. You'll see that in just a moment too. And just in the last few weeks, we have begun posting our videos about the city on YouTube, taking advantage of that very important social engagement network. Under the leadership of Mr. Oliver, we've gotten the 222 CARE program underway, as well as the My Surprise address idea. We'll also be exploring that in a moment, and of course we're streaming Surprise 11. Some of the things we thought about as I culled these from my notes as we were preparing to redesign the site. Theme words for the web: image forward, visual, Web 2.5, usability, functionality, access, powerful, engage, involve everybody, be transparent, be fun, collaborate, tell stories, use the technology, and we think we've been able to achieve that so far. So let's go right to the site. This is how our new internet site appears to the entire world. The top banner emphasizes in images that we are a modern, established, sunny, welcoming, vigorous, happy, and warm place. We think these images and the way they are designed, the colors and the design scheme make those points for us. We're also quite international. We have the ability, again, thanks to Mr. Oliver's leadership, to translate these pages into a variety of languages, Japanese, German, Spanish, French, Italian, etc. A mere click does that. It's really quite an astonishing capability that is there. Today in Surprise, this is our front page, our daily news, and it's not just news releases anymore. You've probably noticed that when we do post important news releases, such as the news about the CTCA tennis tournament, not only do we have news releases, this one just happens to feature me. That's not why I picked it. But more importantly, it features the mayor and the great event that we had recently under Mr. Coronado and Mr. Oliver's leadership and the council's support at the Tennis and Racket Center. So in addition to being able to read about it, you can see a video report of the event, and we're able to do that in a very, it brings the look of the internet culture to our website, which we believe is a very important way to move forward. Another example is the power of our production capability with our new council studio. We can marry that to key staff presentation. Council recently approved Bell Road lighting, landscaping, and signage project. Of course, we can post a news release about that, which we did, but in addition to that, we can now put in key staff presentations, again, with a little help from our production capability, quality video, and a little bit of teleprompter prompting. We can get Mr. Mihalik up there, and he would actually do his presentation in a video format so that people can see it and hear it. And it's not triggering right now, of course, because I really needed to. But that's the way these things go sometimes. Again, this is powerful, accessible, and shows how we can collaborate with our departments to make things happen. Other things in About Surprise I'd like to draw your attention to briefly is the capability of doing what we call Visit Surprise. People read from left to right, of course. This is the first place they're going to look. And we're all about promoting what we have here in our city in terms of our strategic assets. This is a very attractive, well-designed page, very visual. It gives people an opportunity to see some of the assets we can offer as a community. It also shows off our partnerships, the Art Museum with the Western Trails, with our golf courses, the Heard Museum. And when you click on these, you don't leave the site, which we think is really important. If you click on the Heard Museum, for example, you get a synopsis of the Heard Museum and then a link to their site. If you click on golf courses, a little bit about the golf course situation here, and a link to a list of public golf courses in Surprise. Again, it showcases our community partners, what they bring to the table. Ease of navigability, you'll notice from this page we don't have to go anywhere to return to our main menu. Just roll that mouse right up here, and again that menu appears. City life and location information, this is another great example of a collaborative effort and shows the power of accessibility and being transparent. This is a site developed in coordination with our Economic Development Department. There's a huge amount of information available right off of this menu, and it's easily accessible from our home page. For example, click on demographics, and there are all the key demographics about the city of Surprise. If you're trying to find out about this city, to move here or come vacation here or locate a business here, this information is at your fingertips now. That's new for us, and we think it's a very important development. Median income, number of households, etc. Climate, same thing. Click on there and you learn all kinds of things. For example, the average wind speed is 6.2 miles per hour. That's news to me and I think to a lot of us here in Surprise. Back to our main page, you'll see that, if I get back to it here, on the Surprise History Project site, again, this is a way of showing a couple of things. One, that we have a history, that this is a community that came from somewhere, it didn't just spring up, and that we honor it and cherish it, and it is a collaboration between Ms. Aguilar from the clerk's office and the mayor. And the My Surprise Photos is the way we start to get our residents involved. If you go to My Surprise Photos, you'll see that this is a chance for residents to share their stories. What's life like for you in Surprise? What do you like about living here? People send us our photos. There's the Trader Joe's opening. We go ahead and post them with this cool little piece of software that lets you preview the photos before you click on them. This one right here, if I'm not mistaken, is from the recent farmers market that was sent in by Neil Donahue of Surprise. A few other examples. Here's a picture of a young man named Cooper fishing at Surprise Lake. A picture of a coyote wandering through West Point, sent by Barb DiMichele. This is the way citizens get involved with our website. Everybody has a different experience of Surprise. It gives them a chance to share and also to get involved with us as an organization. Moving along quickly now, we'll go to Mayor and Council. This is where the rubber really hits the road in terms of transparency and open government. If we go to our meeting calendar here, for example, this is where people need to find out, what is this council doing? What are we up to? Well, it's all right here. It explains when the regular council meetings are held, how work sessions and special meetings work. You can view the monthly meeting calendar or view it right out here. It's very easy to see. Go to the current agenda site. There is our current agenda. Here we are in a regular city council work session. Current agenda, click on it. It comes up very quickly. Click on that, and we're actually right here on the agenda. You can summon that in a matter of seconds on this website. So again, it's very key that we're able to offer that information to our residents. Get back to our original site. This was a separate window, so we'll close that. Close this. When you go to the current minutes page, again, a listing of all of the council meetings, agenda, minutes, and video, very readily available, obvious, easy to find, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. The Channel 11 link is next. This connects us directly to the Channel 11 site, which is spontaneous and live with what we're doing right now. Here we have the rather odd feeling of watching ourselves live with a little bit of a delay. We're about 20 seconds behind there. I'd like also to draw your attention to this very key fixture here. This is where Granicus is really paying off for us. Through this, you can go to, let's say you're a resident and something happened at the October 23rd meeting that you have an interest in. You click on video, it takes you to this site. Well, that's great. The video is there. The city council meeting is there. You might not know where in the meeting your agenda was, or you knew it was in the middle of the meeting, but how do you get there without trying to grab this little thing and shuffle it around to try to find your meeting space? Well, with the Granicus agenda, you can click on, let's say your item number was number 13. Click on item 13. The video immediately advances to item 13 in the website. Your item appears, therefore, that way right away.
Consideration and action to construct a
course, the
permanent
audio's
restroom
right there.
facility and or
You can
located
hear it
temporary restroom facility at
very
Heritage
easily.
Park.
Well, I'll give another example. I think our keyboard's here. If you're interested in an issue that you knew the council was involved in over, say, the course of a number of meetings, you could enter the word here. See if we can put the word bond up there. Click search, and it will immediately tell you these are the council items where the word bond has appeared on the agenda. Not only that, but because we provide a captioning service for our deaf community, this will search the captioned database. And every time the word bond was uttered by anybody involved in a council meeting, it will present you with a list. And you can click on that. Let's see where it takes us.
For example,
Mr.
tonight
Oliver?
the item that was deferred, the Molly Park restrooms, were actually part of the 2011 CIP, but they are part of the bond package. So for
Bond
example,
package. He
if
mentioned
that
bond
got
package there.
postponed-
Now you'll notice that this doesn't take you to the word bond package right away. It finds that, backs the video up about 8 seconds so that you get a little bit of context. You get an idea of what the context in which that discussion took place. So I think that's just an outstanding feature of what Granicus can do and the look of our new website. City departments will fly right along here because each department has its own site and they're very extensive. We work very closely with all of the departments. You can see by the flyout menus that these departments are very well represented on our site. Moving over to Living in Surprise, we look at the 222 Care site. Again, under the leadership of Mr. Oliver, we've developed this site. It does have a web component. Working with Mr. Jackson and our Information Technology Department, we've designed an online service request form so that if you want a service from the city, you don't have to call anybody, you don't have to know what department you need. You can go here, see if your particular problem is listed here. If it's not, you can submit a written request. You can phrase it any way you'd like. We'll take it from there. Again, opens in a new window, and it's a very easy thing to figure out. My Surprise Address, this is an amazing feature, also done in conjunction with our Information Technology Department under Mr. Oliver's leadership. If we enter an address, let's see, 12425 West Bell Road. Find services, well, it identifies the fact that there's 4 buildings at that location. Of course, that's where we are now at City Hall. We'll pick Building D, where we are at the moment. It immediately presents you with the address, the zip code, the assessor parcel number, the name of the development, the subdivision, how it's zoned, whose council district it is in, and a link to that district member's homepage. The police beat patrol, who provides the water and sewer, and how you can contact them. The trash and recycle pickup days, additional information like election and school. And off to the right are links to sites any property owner might have an interest in, such as utility sites. So again, My Surprise Address, a really cool function. We also thought of this as if you're a resident, what would you expect to see on a site like this? And that helped us flesh out the balance of this site. You don't have to know what department you're looking for. You can go to senior services, trash and recycling, water and sewer, green surprise, without knowing, oh, that's this department or that's that department. We think it really helps people find their way around. There's also a resident info A to Z list, again, with that concept of making information easy to find. This is a very lengthy list, and it's about every city service you could possibly imagine, and we hope that, if nothing else, you can find where you need to go. And those are all links to the appropriate departments and the appropriate contact information to get you the service you're looking for. Wrapping up real quick, here in Business and Surprise, workforce data is the newest addition to this. This is in itself an amazing website. This was unveiled in Avondale, the Westmark Workforce Study, last Thursday, I believe. This is itself an interactive website. You can go to occupations, you can select one, and it will tell you things like the median hourly wage, the mean and median annual wages for that occupation. Again, very important if you're thinking about locating a business here, you can get a real good idea of what kind of workforce is available, what kind of money you can expect to pay them. It has all kinds of applications for that site. Finally, I want to show you the commercial property locator. Again, doing business in Surprise, a very important function of our communications efforts, and the commercial industrial property locator is a pretty amazing feature. Let's say we pick an intersection. The first one that comes up is 115th Avenue in Bell. Put a zip in there. I believe that's 85374. Search. Give it just a second. And here is a listing of all the commercial properties in that vicinity. And we just click on one. Let's select Pavilions at Coyote Lakes. Click on it. You will see an amazing amount of information about that property. And that's right there, very easy to find, very accessible if you're looking to rent or lease office space or maybe buy a commercial property in the city. That's very easy to find, very accessible to you via the site. So that's pretty much what I have to present to you tonight, except I want to talk a little bit about what's next. This site is an ongoing, it's a growing site. We're never done. Some of our immediate tasks include the bond committee site. We're going to be working on that with the committee as it's appointed and with the mayor and the council and the manager on how we reach out to the community and engage the community in the bond process. Our spring training site's coming back in December. That's an award-winning site. We're really looking forward to getting that back up there again and look forward to another great spring training year. Our general plan input process is not over. As you know, the last 18 months or so, we've had community meetings, mass mailings, an opportunity for written comment, electronic voting at the meetings, interactive maps online and surveys online. We're taking that, working with information technology, to another level where people can now comment directly on the entire plan, review it, comment on the pages, review the comments of other people, and comment on those comments, and et cetera. Watch videos, continue to get people involved in the process. And as we move forward, we expect that e-government will continue to grow. Quick list here, and this is the last of my presentation. As we develop the capabilities of web technology and of e-government, these are some of the things we can expect to benefit. These are some of the benefits we can expect to reap. We will have a government that's always open and that's accessible from anywhere. We'll have faster transactions, no lines. It'll save us tax dollars. The citizens and businesses will increase their satisfaction with government. Language options, which we have now, greater citizens' participation, and of course that gives us a competitive advantage. With that, I know I have exceeded, if not met my time, and I appreciate your patience. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's awesome, really outstanding. We're proud of you and your department, and I believe you have most of your department here tonight.
Thank you. I did want to acknowledge everybody in my communications department is behind me right now. except for John Lutz and Jake and Neil are in the back. They're running the TV operation. Everybody in the department had a role in the development of this website. It wasn't just public information, people like Diane and myself. It wasn't just graphic artists. It wasn't just video people. Everybody had a role to play, and that's why I asked them to be here tonight, so that the council and the members of the public who are viewing this program tonight could see that this is a group effort, a united effort, and something that we're all really proud of.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for all of you and your participation. Comments?
Super job. Excellent.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions on the tourism. On the tourism page, can you click into a lodging operation and make a reservation, or get a listing of hotels and restaurants, or?
We're not at that point yet. We want to be able to partner with organizations like the Chamber of Commerce and try to define who should be responsible for those kinds of services. Should they reside with the city? Should they reside with the chamber? Is there something we should, should we develop it together? Those kinds of policy type questions we're just starting to address.
Okay. Suggestion, because this is an ongoing upgrading process, could you highlight the new features on the home page, saying here's some of the new things we've got, for instance, like the workforce study. That would be something that you normally wouldn't intuitively look for, but if you went to and it said, hey, we're new to the page now, workforce study, then you'd look for it, you know?
Right.
The other thing is the real estate postings. When you've got real estate, like you pulled up 115th and Bell, is there a way to hook into whether that property is for sale or not?
Some of the information that's on there will tell you what it cost, and I don't know if it would be a sale price or the price for which it was last sold. But yes, if it was available commercial, if it was on the market for sale, it would show up in that listing. That's one of the reasons.
And who had
that
it
it's
listed?
there.
Like who to contact?
I'd have to look at the site. I'm not sure,
Anyway,
Councilman.
okay.
Yeah.
Just a thought. And then lastly, are you working with Fox on the weather station to get surprised on the weather map?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Good, thank
We're getting there.
Good man, kid.
I
Councilman
would
Alton.
I would like to make a comment. I think your staff and you have done a great job. And this is just the beginning. And that's what makes it so awesome. Thank you for highlighting surprise and making it extremely available to whomever would like to find something. Are we able to take credit card payments for anything over the internet?
Yes, through the Rec Connect program, you can. I believe they take credit card payments to sign up for recreation programs, and in our city store site, we also are able to take credit card payments for merchandise bought online. As a by the way, we do get merchandise requests from all over the country because that site is online. It is also a promotional vehicle for the city because it shows off the city. We particularly concentrated on our desert environment. All of our models, which is most of the staff actually, are out there at the white tanks because most of our visitors are from out of state.
Right.
Now, this time of year, if you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all that sunshine really looks good, so we use the store site also to promote surprise.
Good. And we expect the store just to even get that much bigger once we get over to City Hall.
It's going to be a beautiful location.
Good. I thank you once again, and I look forward to working with you and with the business community and interconnecting the business community to the website somehow. And that is to show the residents what is available throughout the city of Surprise and encourage more shopping and availability for our citizens.
That whole concept of connectedness is really what's driving the whole Web 2.0 and 2.5 concepts. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely on the right track there, Councilman, and that's the direction everything's trending.
Do you ever believe that Surprise website might be a homepage?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, a homepage. Somebody would settle in on that, and are we able to show any national news or anything?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, there are ways. For example, we now do weather on Channel 11. We import live weather statistics, current temperature, current time, and show a weather forecast. So those types of services, as they develop, can be integrated into the web as well.
Good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Vice Mayor.
Just a comment. I can remember when Cox first came into the city, and they talked about the possibilities where we're at right now, and And thank goodness I'm alive to see it. So I really congratulate you on the work you've done.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment as well. One of the interesting things I've had happen to me in the last 4 months is getting emails from places like Maine and Florida saying that they've seen my notebook and read it, and I go, why? But it's neat that they say they're interested in coming out to Surprise to visit, and I think exactly what you said earlier, this is a great hook to bring people out to the sun when they're living in other places of this country. So thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Councilman. You know, one of the statistics that I can share with you is that the state that how can I phrase this? The top visit, the state that sends us the most visitors to our website is the state of California, and followed by Virginia. I don't know why, but the last 3 months, Virginia has been number 2 in the states that send visitors to our website.
I think the CIA headquarters is in Virginia, if I remember rightly.
It is. That's right.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Oliver?
I'd just like to acknowledge Councilmember Williams. My surprise address and service locator came as a comment that he made to me, and we just took and built upon that. You got that from another website, I know, but that's the way I think we make things better, working together as a team.
Yeah, it's all about teamwork. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. We really appreciate it. We're going to move on to item number 2, and I think I'm going to be turning this over to you, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Actually, Centra Hoffman and I will be presenting this. It's a development agreement presentation this evening. Centra Hoffman will be leading out with regards to a general overview, and then I'll be following that up with a legal background in terms of what the requirements are of the agreements. Centra.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The development agreement workshop tonight is as a result of the council presentation, the council retreat that we had on September 13th. During that retreat, council members had several questions about development agreements, and it was determined that we would come before you and do a workshop. Michael and I are the development agreement team, and that team is the 2 of us, but we also work with all of the other departments that are affected by development agreements. The Parks and Recreation Department, Community Development, Economic Development, Fire, Water, Transportation, all of those all of those departments are affected and touch development agreements, because development agreements, in terms of its definition, it's a legal document that captures the financial commitments of the city, along with the requirements and the obligations of the developer. So again, it touches all the departments that deal with growth. On the back end of it, what we do once we complete a development agreement is, obviously we have to track our commitments. So that's done in coordination with the Management and Budget Department. Michael will go through the legal parameters of how we negotiate a development agreement and what we're able to do. I thought I'd list out the types of development agreements that we have in place today. We have basically 4 types that we work off of, and I'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail for you. First is the Economic Incentive Agreement, and basically that agreement is we're just paying a company to come to Surprise because we feel that there are benefits, financial benefits, economic employment benefits, some sort of benefit that behooves the city to enter into this agreement where we pay them a lump sum of money and they come to the city. By no means is it a blank check. I hope I don't convey that to you. But basically what these agreements contain is there's no requirement for the developer to build anything or to build any infrastructure that needs to be reimbursed. They are required to perform in terms of if it's the ones that we have are the auto dealerships. They are required to open by a certain date. Obviously, we're going to be splitting the sales tax with them, so they are generating some sort of economic benefit to the city. Michael will again go through the legal limitations on that type of agreement. We also have, which is most commonly used, is our impact fee development agreements. Every time I stand before you, I always say the city's policy is growth should pay for itself. And really, that's the heart of these agreements. We charge impact fees because the developer will come in and build the infrastructure that's required to support that project. We then collect impact fees and then reimburse the developer of those with those impact fees for the cost of what they're building. There's legal parameters on how that is set up, and again, Michael will go through that. All of the development agreements, I didn't mention before in the previous slide, but all of our development agreements have performance measures. We have to have those things in there because we have to make sure that any type of financial agreement we have with a developer, we need to make sure that they are actually performing. We have to have timelines in there, when they start construction, when they complete construction, what the types of obligations they have, and term limits for the agreements too. Some quick examples of impact fee and reimbursement agreements that we have are, you're very familiar with Grand Vista, Marley Park, Sunhaven, Broadstone. These are residential projects that are set up where the developer would receive impact fee as their reimbursement. We also have some others that are sewer and water agreements that a group of developers will get together to fund, say, for example, the construction of a water reclamation facility, and they get reimbursed impact fees through that. So we have those agreements that are definitely tied to a specific project, but it's not the project agreement. I hope that wasn't too confusing. The other type of agreement we have, which we have 4 of these agreements out there, the sales tax reimbursement agreement, and you're very familiar with these because we've come before you many times discussing these agreements. These are sales tax reimbursement agreements generally applied to retail projects where we are reimbursing the developer for the infrastructure that they build. Unlike the residential projects, let me go back a little bit. A residential project, say a Grand Vista that has 8,000 units in it, there's enough units to collect impact fees to make the developer whole or close to being whole. With a commercial project, it's a lot different. There's a lot fewer tenants in there, a lot fewer lots in there. So it's typically more difficult for a developer to recoup their cost. That's why they'll come to us, they'll approach us and say, this is the benefit of this project. It really makes sense that you guys consider this, and we will look at doing something like that. The development agreements that we have, sales tax reimbursement agreements, they're anywhere from splitting the sales tax generated by the project at either 25%, 75%, or 50-50. The majority of them are 50-50. And again, we have performance measures in there. They have to start construction, they have to complete construction. The most popular ones that we've been working with, as you all know, Prasada, Surprise Point, Vestar, and there's another one, the Bell and Dysart agreement. When most of you came on council, one of the things that you spoke to us about initially was doing some sort of repayment mechanism where either the city or the developer could complete a project and then be reimbursed for those costs by future users. In February of this year, we brought to you the repayment ordinance, and we implemented that in February, and we have 2 agreements that fall under the repayment ordinance. One is the Litchfield Road repayment ordinance, which the city is going in and constructing the improvements to Litchfield Road, and then future users would come in and tie in and pay reimburse the city. We also recently passed the Fulton sewer line agreement, and that's where the developer is actually going to go in and they will be reimbursed through future users. I'm going to turn this over to Michael now, and he will go through all the legal limitations of development agreements.
Thank you, Sintra. This is at the direction of council, and so as I go through this, if there are any questions, feel free to interrupt and throw those out to me, because again, at the workshop, there was an interest in understanding how these development agreements work. At times, the legal stuff can actually get kind of dry and boring. I try to spice it up, but questions, feel free to throw them at me. With regards to development agreements, and I'm just going to take a quick step back here, there's really, in terms of these 3 types, the first development agreement that we're looking at is really purely development, and that is when you're looking at the residential agreements, and what they must be is consistent with the general plan. You can identify the term, the permitted uses, the density and intensity, the reservation of public land, the phasing, the infrastructure. Sintra talked to you about that in terms of infrastructure, the roads, the sewer, the water. We identify all of that. taxing districts, CFDs, we'll identify whether or not we'll allow a CFD. As a practice, generally, we will allow the formation of a CFD. However, that's at the discretion of the council. We don't obligate the city in terms of a CFD in a development agreement. And then also other matters relating to development. What you're really looking at with one of these development agreements is it's generally accompanied with a PAD, so it's accompanied with zoning, and within the development agreement, you will vest that zoning as well, so that what you're doing is, in effect, creating a development from scratch. This is kind of opposite straight zoning. Councilmember Altman.
Yes, Mr. Bailey, when you talk about PADs and CFDs and all that, for the viewing audience, if you would let them know what all that means.
Okay, I'm sorry. A PAD is a planned area development. It's a type of general zoning where the classifications or the uses that are allowable in that can be varied. With regards to a CFD, that's a community facilities district. That's a financing mechanism that property owners can create. It creates a mechanism whereby infrastructure can be paid for. There is an assessment that goes on the land. In terms of a community facilities district at this point in time, there is only one that's within the city, and that's at Marley Park. Building upon this residential type development agreement, you have what I would call the purely economic development agreements, and this is a separate statute that you operate under, but it builds on top of one another. So the 9-500.5 Point 11 builds upon that, and this is what we talk about when we're talking about these offering economic incentives, offering employment incentives. For example, when a company wants to come to town, we'll split retail sales tax with them. We could also potentially provide them some sort of payment in the event that they hire employees that meet a certain classification or certain salary range. In terms of the legal requirement, they're here, and I'll just go through them briefly. First and foremost, it cannot be enacted as an emergency. You have to enact this on the regular agenda. You can't push it through. I think that's the easiest way to put that, is when the legislature came forward with this, they did not want this to be pushed through. They wanted to make sure that it was an open and transparent policy, because in effect what you're doing is you're taking public money and you're giving it to a private entity. Additionally, with regards to cities, because of our size now at over 100,000 people, we're required to make certain findings. And in terms of those findings, when we do have an incentive agreement, we have to make sure that what the city is receiving is greater than what the city is giving out. So typically what you'll see in this agreement is you'll see a sharing of sales tax revenue of 51% to 49%, or based upon the term you'll have for years 1 through 5, you will have the circumstance where you will pay 50-50, but they're obligated to stay for years 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when you look at the economics of the whole of the agreement, the city is getting back more than it's paying out. Also, you have to show that in the absence of a tax incentive, the retail business would not locate in the city. Basically, you're saying, or the business is telling you, I'm not going to come to the city of Surprise unless you give me this incentive. As you can tell, this generally relates to large retail establishments, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, IKEA's. That's where you'll generally see a lot of these. Additionally, when you have these findings, you're required to make a notice of intent public 14 days prior to that. We've done that before. 14 days prior to considering a development agreement, we come before you. The council makes a notice of intent that we are going to pass this development agreement. We make the findings at that time, and then what we'll do is we usually schedule it 2 weeks later at the next meeting. With regards to this finding, one important aspect of it is the fact that it must be done by a third party, and that third party analysis can't be paid for by the developer. Again, the intent of the legislature is to try and make it as open as possible, and so that the public understands where the money is going. Again, I talked about the proposed revenue generated can't be less than the amount of the incentive. When we're talking about retail sales tax, we're talking about tangible personal property. What that is, it's automobiles, it's the sales of goods. We are not talking about services. Also, what's interesting is we are not talking about other taxes such as hotel taxes, and this is something that you want to keep in mind in terms of incentives, is that you're not talking about those other taxes that exist other than retail. Food tax, restaurant tax, it's basically the bed, bath, and booze tax. So for example, hotel taxes, those do not fall under this as well. The critical aspect of these economic incentive agreements has to do with the recent legislation where, interestingly enough, to give you the background of it, there was a state senator who sought a development agreement, an economic development agreement from the city of Phoenix. The city of Phoenix said, no, I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. And that state senator was unhappy with that and then proposed legislation. I don't know if that's accurate. That's the way the story goes. Makes for a good introduction. What happened is with this legislation is that when a city now makes a retail sales tax incentive agreement, there is a penalty. And the penalty is equal to what is being given to the development or the builder or the entity for a 5-year period, 60 months. So in terms of the city, if the city enters into an agreement and we decide that we do want to incur this penalty, we would be, in effect, double burdened to the extent that we're not receiving it, we're giving it back to the entity, and then also the state shared revenue equal to what we're giving back is being held from us as well. One of the interesting things to consider about this, though, and some would argue that it's a loophole, and that is when you talk about a business, when you're talking about the first 5 years of the life of a business, your revenue streams are generally lower than what a more established business is. And so if you create an economic incentive agreement where you tell the individual or you negotiate with the individual that we want you to stay for 10 years or for 15 years, there is the loophole that cities can take the hit up front. We can take a hit for 5 years when the taxes will be lower with the hope that years 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they will be higher. And then we could even share that revenue at that time and then even go years 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then take 100% of that revenue. So there is some flexibility, but it's that first 5 years where you're being penalized. Again, equal to the amount of the incentive realized by the taxpayer extended over a period of 60 months. Again, in terms of what the restriction is against, it's a retail business facility. And in terms of what is a retail business facility, it's measured really in two ways. And it's either measured by the employees that are assigned to retail or the square footage of the facility. So there is the opportunity, again, for this unique situation, and I'm sorry I can't come up with one off the top of my head, where 45% of the square footage of the facility may be retail sales. However, 55% may be for services. That would not fall within this definition in terms of there being this punitive measure. So there is that flexibility. I'm sorry, I've never eaten at a Cracker Barrel. I will go, though. I will go.
What is merchandise?
Okay. And that's a very... that would be an interesting incentive agreement, but I'm assuming if half of it's merchandise or less than half of it actually is merchandise, then the rest is a restaurant facility, you could incentivize that. Where that becomes critical, though, and again, bringing into what I've previously said, is when you're talking about hotels, conference centers, which I know are some goals or they've been considered opportunities for this city, that those are not considered per se retail establishments. And depending on, again, what is built, that may be a 40 to 60 or 45 to 55 type relationship where you wouldn't be penalized. Additionally, this penalty doesn't apply to certain exceptions. And this is one thing that's very critical because when this legislation passed, the first thing that happened is that the name Surprise was shot out in the newspapers saying, you're in violation and actually we fall within one of these exceptions. The first one is general municipal services. We do give general municipal services to all our businesses. We can give incentives to all of our businesses so long as that they're those general municipal services, trash, water, sewer, etc. The other exception is incentives available to all. If you do want to create an incentive package and you want to give it to everybody, you can do that as well, so long as it's across the board. That would be something to the effect of if you gave every retail establishment a 5%, 10% reimbursement, that's what would be applicable. Redevelopment projects. Redevelopment projects don't have this penalty. Redevelopment projects That's a different mechanism, a different economic mechanism in and of itself. However, there is one that exists in the city, and that is Surprise Center. In that regard, this penalty does not apply to that location. With regards to development projects, if the council wanted to create a redevelopment project, the council has to go through a process where there's a public hearing, there's certain findings made of slum and blight, and at that point in time, the council would then have to do a redevelopment plan. Then we would have this redevelopment district. In the event then you wanted to incentivize that district, you would be able to do so without penalty. Preserving historical buildings, again, you can provide incentives for the restoration of historical buildings. If there's an entity that wanted to come in and restore a historical building, there is the possibility you could do that. Our challenge here is, what is a historical building? I don't know if City Hall would be deemed a historical building at this point in time. It's all possible. My understanding, antiques now 20 years. And then finally, brownfield cleanup or remediation. Again, if there is a brownfield cleanup, at this point in time, I'm unaware of any property that the city, or any property within the city that has been identified as a brownfield property. Brownfield property is typically, it's a property that's, there's an environmental issue with regards to it. Issues would be old gas stations can be a brownfield, where there's been manufacturing where chemicals may have existed. That's typically a brownfield property. In terms of the options, as I've gone through, I've given you these options. There is some flexibility. However, there are also these restrictions. One thing I wanted to touch upon really briefly, because it is mentioned a lot with regards to economic development agreements, because it can be contained in them, and that is the GPLET, or people will call it giblet. It's also interesting in the sense that this will probably be the next economic incentive that the state legislature will look to amend. And what that is that when there are certain uses that are identified on property, there's a reduced property tax. And when you're looking at large manufacturing entities or large retail entities, that can make a big difference in terms of soliciting somebody. An example being the Cabela's. There's a giblet with regard to Cabela's. And as I recall, the city actually owns the retail space that's leased by the city, or by Cabela's from the city, and therefore there's the reduced retail sales tax rate. With that, I have nothing else. Are there any questions that you may have for myself or Ms. Hoffman? We'll be willing to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Questions, gentlemen? No questions. Very complete report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, that concludes our meeting for tonight. Meeting adjourned.